supports a team that works on a life cycle device design and development of health, I think, devices. So she's going to tell us probably more about her role as well. She was actually very involved, even during her postdoctoral scholar at Western, in participating on committees and representing the postdoctoral scholars. So I know that I was watching her as she grew in her professional development and took advantage of a lot of opportunities at Western. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Yara Hosein.
Great. Thank you so much, Mihaela.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Wow. And thank you to Julie for inviting me here to speak at the Scholars to Leaders speaker series. So today I'm hoping to do a presentation. I have a 45-minute slot. I'm hoping to go for about 30 minutes so we could have some extra time for some good discussion since we have such a diverse group of attendees. So before I begin my talk on the power of a PhD, I thought I'll introduce myself so you kind of know a little bit about why I was asked to be here today and present on this topic. So I was born, raised, and bred at Western, as you can see from my slide. I was one of those who actually stayed at Western for most of my training. I did my undergrad here in science, in medical biophysics, and then I moved into my PhD in biomedical engineering. And then I got a really unique opportunity as a postdoctoral fellow with Schulich's Graduate Orthodontics Program, where I was the first postdoctoral fellow that was hired there. And what my role was to help expand their research program. So the Graduate Orthodontics Program really is a clinical program, but there's a research aspect for the clinical residents. And so I was hired to help those clinical residents get a bit more exposure to research with nice projects and sort of on a collaborative nature by balancing, the engineering with the clinical aspect. And so with regard to the role that I'm in right now, as Mihaela mentioned, at ADEAS, which is our acronym, my postdoctoral fellowship really was a contributing factor to the role that I currently have. With regards to, in my postdoctoral fellowship was really when I learned a lot of my diverse skill sets, I would say, some of the more softer skills that I will talk about later in my presentation. But as well, one of my mentors during my postdoctoral fellowships was Dr. David Holdsworth, who's from Robarts Research. And he was one of the masterminds behind this enterprise of ADEAS, which I'll discuss in a bit. And he came to me and told me he had an opportunity that he would like to offer if I would join the team at ADEAS as they got started. And obviously, I couldn't turn it down. It seemed like such innovative and new experience that I thought, you know what, I'll try my luck at it. So right now, that's the role I'm currently in at ADEAS. I'm in a position of Director of Operations. However, when I started with ADEAS back in 2017, which was when we actually opened, I started in a role known as an application specialist. And so ADEAS is a medical device company that's owned and operated by Western University. So it's owned by the commercial branch of Western, which is Western Research Park. And we specialize in manufacturing and delivering medical devices for the healthcare market. So in that sense, hospitals are our sort of customers. And our specialization is that we use 3D printing technology, so in metal as well as plastics, to prepare very customized medical devices or also patient-specific devices that matches a specific patient's treatment plan. And we do this for both veterinary applications. So those would be actually veterinary patients, so animals who are patients requiring surgical intervention, but as well as human patients, as are among those in the hospital. And so again, our customers in that route would be surgeons as well as the hospital. But the other side of ADEAS where we also venture into is 3D printing services. So again, because our technology is metal and plastic 3D printing, we do provide 3D printing services for research and development applications. And so our customers in that sense would be industry customers, industry clients, researchers here at Western or across Canada, and even some of the clinical the surgeon designers, we call them, who are looking into developing their own device for R&D purposes. And so with regards to my role at ADEAS, I started in this sort of application specialist role, where I was really hired to be a sort of liaison between the company and our customers, as you can tell, who are in the sort of medical realm. And so I was meant to have those discussions and be that middle ground to bring in jobs into Adidas. But over time, I was able to move along in my role at Adidas. And this was due to the fact, I think, primarily because I started to use a lot of these skills that I developed during my PhD and postdoc and apply it to sort of the company setting. And with that, I was able to advance a bit. And so because Adidas is a startup medical device company, as many of you all know, it's startups, it's pretty much a small team. And because it's a small team, many times in your role, you're assigned to do a number of different things. So currently in my director of operations role, I wear quite a few hats. I'm involved in product development. So that would be any new sort of medical devices that Adidas would like to develop. I'm the lead on those teams, and I take it through the sort of testing and validation stage in order to get it ready to be presented to Health Canada, and then eventually be able to take it to market. The other hat that I wear at Adidas, because we are a manufacturing facility, there's a variety of processes that are required for us to be able to produce safe and effective medical devices. And so we have processes that vary from obviously the 3D printing process to post-processing, and then even a process of cleaning our devices prior to getting it out to the hospitals. All of these processes need to be developed in very stringent sort of methods, as well as they need to be managed and controlled to ensure that we're not falling out of control. And the minute we know a process is out of control, we have to quickly bring it back into control to ensure that, again, it's working effectively for production of safe and effective medical devices. The other role that I wear hats on is our regulatory applications. So again, medical devices, before they can be sold within Canada or across the world, it does need to be approved by regulatory bodies. So I work with the quality team to ensure that our applications going in for these sort of products that are under development are well explained, our results are well presented, so that Health Canada can then make the judgment on whether or not our device is safe to be put into the Canadian market. And then finally, my last two sort of roles really is more on a where I really apply the soft skills actually is on the operations team. I manage the operations team, which is the production team, as well as the design and development team and the quality team. And I also am the scientific or industry clinical liaison, where I present on behalf of the Adidas at various forums. So this could be scientific conferences, this could be industry forums, or even just going into hospitals and chatting with clinical departments with regards to what we do at Adidas and what we can offer their team. And so why I want to present to you what I do at Adidas is because in retrospect, when I think about my ability to be able to be competent in these multiple different hats that I wear, I do think my PhD contributed highly to it. And so this slide, I wanted to explain to you just very briefly with just a few points, what I believe I developed from my PhD that I am currently able to apply to the job or role that I am in. And so people describe a PhD in multiple different languages. Many times it comes across with very negative connotations with regards to it being too overqualified, too highly specialized. But I acknowledge that, and I take that and I say, no, I have developed skill sets that are indispensable to my company where I use it wisely. So firstly, everybody says that a PhD is mentally and emotionally challenging. We all know that. For those of you who are in PhDs or have been through the PhD process, you know there are times where things can be quite mentally and emotionally challenging. But I believe that I developed resilience from this experience, which I currently use in my role at Adidas. Secondly, many people say a PhD is highly specialized, and it is indeed, because you are working towards a single project, focusing on it for many years. But at the end of the day, you develop such a focus and a persistence with a problem that you're trying to solve, and you eventually get that problem solved. It is also quite competitive. In a PhD, you're always applying for scholarships or grants. You're always being compared to others with regards to your publication count, with regards to how many presentations you have done, how many conferences you've attended. So as much as it is competitive, I do believe that I developed a sense of self-confidence not just self-confidence in myself, but self-confidence in my work and my competence to be able to present my work. And then finally, the most, I guess, the most used sort of terminology to describe a PhD is overqualified. Everybody talks about you're too overqualified as a PhD. And I actually want to spin that into a positive sense, because I do think we're overqualified, but we are overqualified because we have such an extensive and diverse skill set that is quite unique, that we can contribute to any sort of field that we go into. And so for the rest of my presentation, I really want to focus on this overqualification and what I mean by this diverse skill set that you have and that you can offer to any employer. So when I talk about diverse skill sets, everybody knows the term skill sets being used and you apply it to your resume. But what do we mean by diverse skill sets? So here I have a little slide that I got from Indeed.com, which you know is a hiring website, where they nicely describe the difference between hard skills and soft skills. So when they talk about hard skills, those are the quantifiable skills that we all have. And as PhDs or graduate students, master's students, whatever, we do have this. We are trained very much to have technical competence. So this would be quantifiable with regards to, you know, you're quite competent in statistical analysis, you're competent in data mining, you're competent in user interface design, programming. And that's a little bit more apparent to us as graduate students. However, the other very important skill set is the soft skill set. And we call this the intangible ones, meaning, you know, it really cannot be measured, it cannot be quantified, but it is very integral in terms of showing ourselves as having a sort of a comprehensive skill set. And so for my presentation, I'm not going to focus on the hard skill set, because I think we all can self-identify what our hard skills are based on our various PhD training. It's really these soft skill sets that I really want us to start thinking about as PhD students in terms of understanding what is offered to us in our PhD in terms of our foundation and our training, and showing how that could be translated into this sort of intangible soft skill set that we can offer to future employers. So for the next couple of slides, I decided to look at some of those soft skills that I think, based on my PhD I developed, which I currently apply into my role at Adeas. And so again, it's just a few sort of examples, but I really urge you all to also think about your own PhDs and thinking about what you can pull from it that will be able to justify your soft skills. So the first one, which everybody probably is pretty aware of, is that although we are not certified as project managers, we are quite competent in project management. And I say this because all of us as PhDs or even master students, you have a project that you're assigned. And with that, you do have to work on timelines to meet specific project objectives and milestones. Many times in your PhD or postdoctoral fellowship, you're also working with your supervisors for writing grants. So you're budgeting. As well, when you do get funds from your grants, you're then allocating the funds accordingly for whatever is required for your project. So you do have this experience. In addition, you also prepare plans in terms of your proposals, as well as reports that support your project data. And at the same time, you're communicating with stakeholders at all levels. And when I say this, I say stakeholders at all levels, because that could be everything from your granting agencies, your scholarship programs, to your grad students at seminar, your fellow grad students, to your supervisors. So you do have a lot of experience with regards to taking a project from start to finish successfully while meeting all the milestones and expectations of a project. And I need you all to realize that although you're not able to put you're a certified project manager on your resume, you can find ways to highlight this sort of skill set to make it very apparent to future employers. The next one is probably self-explanatory, because we all know we're quite good with communication. It's a requirement of us as graduate students. We do routinely present in oral settings as well as written communications. And we're good with it with regards to technical communication. We do this when we prepare our manuscripts, when we present at conferences. But I know also recently there has been sort of a weight being played on being able to communicate to lay audiences. This is, for example, if you take part in the 3-minute thesis competition, or even if you're asked to do an interview with media with regards to your research. As well as I know recently in your thesis submissions, you are also required to have a lay summary abstract in addition to your technical abstract. So you are quite competent in being able to communicate your work to multiple audiences. Additionally, most of our PhD projects or graduate projects has a sort of a focus with in terms of who are the users of our research or who are the customers of our research. In some areas, if you're in biomedical research, it might be surgeons, it might be clinicians, it might be patients, or if you're in other areas where you're more working with focus groups, that is your user group. And at the same time, while you're able to communicate to those sort of different levels, you're also able to communicate on a higher level to stakeholders and investors, if you consider your granting agencies, your collaborators, and your industry partners. So again, trying to show you all here that you do have the effective communication skills to help you communicate at all different levels. And again, you need to find ways to highlight this when you do prepare yourself for the job market. The next area and soft skills that I want to focus on, I couldn't quite find a name to describe it. So I describe it as research and data management, but I'll explain what I mean here. So one thing that PhDs or graduate students or postdocs that really have that stands out is our intent to find and seek information. Within our projects, if there really is no clear answer to what we're looking for, we will go out and seek it. We will find ways to get those resources. And at the same time, not just get the resources, we're able to sort through the information quite well to be able to determine which are relevant for us in whatever sort of problem we're trying to solve. And not just are we able to sort through it, we're also able to teach ourselves the information, to comprehend new material, to be able to see how it applies to our research and the subject matter we're working on. And obviously, this is key in any organization, but especially if you're in a role where you're required to be a decision maker for an organization, you have to show that you're quite competent in getting all the information and factual information at hand to be able to sort through and sift through the information, to understand it, to better be able to make a decision that will advance your organization forward. And so again, you are taught this in your PhD or your postdoctoral fellowships because you do this every day with your projects. So finding ways to show this in your resume and when you present yourself. The next area, again, I don't know if this is the correct terminology, but I call it behavioral self-management. And this has to do with the way in which we approach problems or we approach our projects, so self-management. We are able to self-manage ourselves with regards to meeting timelines and tasks that are required from our graduate studies. But with that, we also can work quite effectively under pressure and with limited supervision. By the time you get to your PhD level, you will know that you have your supervisor there as a great mentor to guide you along, but really they leave it up to you to work with limited supervision to get your project done. And with that comes this ability to self-manage time, meet strict deadlines. But at the end of the day, it still comes with very high productivity where your output is a good project. And so finding ways to describe this sort of self-management nature within the presentation of your soft skill sets that you develop from your PhD. Next, interpersonal leadership. So this one we all know. I think everybody talks about leadership as a soft skill set, and I'm sure you could quickly identify things from your PhD or graduate level training that get you there. But I use the word interpersonal here because I think this is key as part of leadership. You can lead a team, but if you do not have interpersonal skills, I do not think you're a leader, to be quite honest. And so I think at the level of our PhD, we do get experience in interpersonal leadership. You are able to work with multiple teams at the level of your PhD, whether that be on multiple projects in addition to your main research project, and you work on these projects concurrently, all at the same time to eventually, complete your degree. Many times you're either leading on these teams or you're collaborating with teams. In some cases, you probably supervise undergrad students in your group or graduate students. So that's where the sort of interpersonal leadership comes in as well. But also if you're involved in extracurricular activities. So whether you are a conference organizer for a conference being hosted by Western, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're on a trainee group, all of these contributes to the sort of interpersonal leadership that I'm talking about. And again, I do think you can show this as well on your resumes. And the final sort of one that I want to talk about, as I said, these are just a couple examples to show you what I think I can automatically take out of my PhD training and show that it applies to my job. But you can obviously sit and think about a lot more. The final one is critical thinking and problem solving. As PhDs or as graduate students, we are just naturally introspective with regards to the way we approach problems. We think about it, we think deeply about it in order to determine the best sort of solution, the best sort of outcome. And as I mentioned before, we do this by assessing all facts, getting all the information we need. But one key thing that we are able to do, which is unique, is that we're able to adapt to various challenges during the process. For those of you who are in a PhD or who have completed a PhD or even just in grad school, you would know there are many challenges where your project could either change its path from one intention to another, or you might be thrown sort of hurdles with regards to timelines, but yet you're able to get over those sort of hurdles and be able to adapt to produce a good project at the end. So again, showing how you're able to approach problem solving and critical thinking in a more unique sense. And so, as I said before, those are just a few sort of soft skills that I wanted to highlight to you based on what I could immediately think about that I use routinely in my role at Adeas. But I really urge you all, because you're all from different backgrounds, all from different training groups, whether you're in science and engineering, whether you're in more of a social science, to sit and think about what you have in your PhD that can be highlighted as a soft skill set. And use resources online as well to get that. Look at Google to understand. Indeed, LinkedIn, all these groups post wonderful information on what are soft skills that are looked for by companies or academia or institutions. So I suggest you do some self-research as well too. Now, for the next half of my presentation, I want to focus on, once you're able to identify that you do indeed have soft and hard skills, how do you go about marketing yourself and marketing your PhD with regards to being able to show that you are suitable to join any field that you go into, whether it be academia or academic or non-academic fields? And so to begin, I think one way I would suggest you do it is to consider what is your value proposition as a PhD graduate or as a soon-to-be PhD graduate. And when I say value proposition, I am not talking about your research project. When I talk about your value proposition, I'm talking about you and what you have in terms of your skill sets, your strengths that you can offer to a potential future employer. I think one thing as PhDs and grad students we get caught up in, we think our value proposition is our research topic or dissertation topic, where the minute somebody asks us what we do or what we enjoy doing, we regurgitate what our project is. And that is not your value proposition. That is your research. Your value proposition is what should somebody invest in you for? At the end of the day, when you're being hired by anybody, they are investing in you. They're putting money into you with the intention that you will expand and improve their organization. So you need to figure out really fast how your values will contribute to the expansion and the growth of that organization. And so some ways I suggest you do that is, you can just start by sitting and thinking about what are your strengths, whether it be from any training, your PhD training, your master's training, even jobs that you have to decide. What are your strengths? What do you like doing? What have you been commended on by your supervisor, by your advisory committee, by others? And so to give you an example, personally for me, I know I'm a very organized and structured person. It is one of my strengths. I have been told that by my mentors in the past, and I do enjoy doing it. I do enjoy taking chaos and putting some organization to it. So that is not my value proposition, but it contributes to my value proposition. So it's one of those things that if I were listing my strengths, will go on my list of strengths, which then I will tie into my overall value proposition to a company. And so as you list these different strengths that you think you have or what you like doing or what people have commended you on, you will soon realize that themes start to develop with regards to who you are and what your values are. And that's where you're going to use these themes wisely to sort through your skill sets and be able to market yourself. And when I say market yourself, I'm talking about in areas other than your resume, your CV, and your cover letter. I'm talking about avenues such as LinkedIn, Twitter, whether you have a website, whether you get involved in organizational, professional organizations, because I do think that is key. There's only so much a resume and a cover letter and so on can tell about you. So you do have to show that other side of you and show your value proposition in those other formats. And so I pulled a bit of data here. This is from the Manifest 2020 recruitment survey, where they said 98% of HR professionals perform background research on you before they hire you. So this is independent of your resume, independent of your cover letter. They go out there to see what is your value to them in whatever other forums that you use. So for those of you who actually don't have a LinkedIn account, I suggest that's one thing you want to do after this presentation. There's a lot of seminars actually offered at Western on how to set up a LinkedIn profile. I suggest you do that because I know from within our organization, the first place we go to when we're trying to recruit people is to LinkedIn to see where their value stands. So the next area, I bring up this slide again with regard to the hard skills and the soft skills. Once you're able to sit and figure out what your value proposition is, you now want to start assigning your sort of skills in terms of your hard skills and your soft skills that show or highlight your value proposition. So again, you can go to Indeed.com. This is right there. If you Google Indeed.com, hard skills, soft skills, and start listing your skill sets. And I think some things are pretty known right now. You will be able to fill that pretty quickly. But soon you'll realize there are probably some hard skills and soft skills that you need to expand on in order to fully complete your value proposition. So if you're selling yourself as somebody who is experienced, I'll use myself as an example, is experienced in additive manufacturing for medical devices. If I think I need some extra experience in additive manufacturing, I'm going to go out there and seek some extra hard skills on that. And so expand your skill sets. In terms of the hard skills, so this is obviously quantifiable ones. If you think there are things you're still lacking, seek those by either doing continuing education workshops, or even a lot of industries have started to do training workshops. And they're doing this because they want to ensure that they're training the general population. So when it's time to hire, there is a good subset that has the core competence to be able to fill roles that are needed within the industry. So I suggest you start looking at the hard skills that you have, what you need to expand on, and start seeking those out. I suggest also making sure you're going through sort of a certification type program, so then at least there's some credibility. So again, it could be a continuing education program that offers a certificate, or it could be an expert in the field who's offering a sort of a certification program in whatever that hard skill is. Now, at the same time, as much as you want to expand on your hard skill, your soft skills are key as well too. And so one way to do this, to expand on those intangible skills, would be to just get involved in stuff that are happening within the university environment, outside of the university environment. This could be, volunteering at conferences, research days. But also, I really want to highlight seeking out available resources at Western. When I had been asked to present here today, I decided to look into Own Your Future, because that's a group that invited me to present today. And I was so amazed and just excited for PhD students or grad students at this level that you have these sort of resources available to you. If you go to the Own Your Future website, there are wonderful workshops, leadership sort of presentations that you can sign up for free of charge because you are with Western. And these definitely contribute to the soft skill set. So I would say if you take away nothing from my presentation today, the one thing I want you to take away is at the end of this to visit that Own Your Future website and start figuring out what you can use to your benefit from those list of options available to you. Sorry. And then I think the one key thing that I'd like to say is do not limit yourself. I think as PhD graduates, PhD students, we tend to think of ourselves in terms of our academic identity, our research project. No, we're way more than that. We're, as I said, your value proposition, you are a person with a lot of key skills that is marketable to any organization. And so with that, I would say once you figure out your value proposition, you will quickly determine if there are non-technical positions that fit within your value proposition. So some people, they tend to think we're only technically trained and they're going to go for technical positions. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of great non-technical positions where your values can be used and you can grow in those positions. As well, I think many times we tend to think of positions as, we get into a position and we stay there from now until we retire. Because usually in academic positions, you get in and you probably stay within that path, probably until you retire. But one thing I learned having moved on out of academia is that a lot of people in the industries consider positions quite dynamic and facilitating growth. So many people were getting into a position because they know they can grow in it, but they can also contribute to the position. And then they choose after a couple of years to expand themselves. So either they grow vertically, they go upwards, or they go laterally to figure out how they can again expand on their skill set, grow personally, but also contribute in a different way. So start thinking about your value to organizations with that in mind, so that you do not just limit yourself to these very highly technical positions. And at the end of the day, I think we all just need to take control of our career identity. We get so caught up in our academic identity that we don't realize that, there is an identity in terms of our career and how we present ourselves. And I suggest we do this with a lot of intention with regards to knowing exactly what you want in terms of your career path. And at the end of the day, I can't stress this enough, networking at all levels are key. And I say all levels because this could be networking with CEOs of companies. It could be networking with lab technicians within labs or lab technicians within organizations. At all levels, networking will get you very far with regards to new opportunities or just being able to figure out what opportunities are out there where you can kind of discover where you fall in and where you fit in within the bigger picture of different organizations. And so with that, I want to sort of, end this part of my presentation with some key take-home messages, because I did kind of cover quite a few things. So I think at the end of the day, I want you all to really sit and think about your PhD and what the value is from it and the skill set that accompanies that value proposition that you're going to put together. From that, you will create your career identity and use that to market yourself accordingly on whatever different platforms, and be intentional about it. When you consider your sort of value propositions and you list your skill set, you want to also consider what areas you still need to expand on or you still need development, and definitely take ownership on that and seek those opportunities out yourself. And at the end of the day, network, network, network. I'll keep saying that over and over. And so, what is the value of your PhD? Towards the end of my presentation, I want to think about what is the value that the PhD holds. And I would like to let you all know that your PhD is uniquely invaluable. And I would like for all of you all to recognize that and really start treating it that way. And I say this with regards to both whether, if you're thinking about an academic job or a non-academic job. However, the big difference between the value of your PhD in academia is that your value falls heavily in academia on your technical competence and your scientific progress with regards to publications, number of publications, number of presentations, number of patents. However, in life and in other jobs, the value of your PhD is really focused more on you and what you can offer to a position that you're put into. And this incorporates, obviously, as I said before, your soft skills and your hard skills. And you do have to show your diversity in these sort of skill sets, both soft and hard, to be able to show that you're adaptable to different roles within different organizations and show that you're able to fit into an organization and contribute to, the improvement or the expansion of an organization as a whole. So that, to me, is what the value of your PhD is. And I'd like to end my presentation now with just a few quotes. So when I was asked to do this presentation, I reached out to some of my colleagues who are actually PhD grads from different areas in academia to kind of ask them what is their value for PhD. So this is from Dr. Adam Page, who did his PhD in medical biophysics, and now he's a SEAL associate with Dupuy. He said that the PhD value to him is the level of authority that commands a certain level of respect. He found that it showed his employers and clients that he has resilience and intellect to tackle any problem, and his work will always be of a high quality. The next one is Dr. Helena Gaspard, who's a PhD in political science, and now she's the Director of Governance and Institutions with the Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy. And she said that her PhD represents both the capacity for problem solving and ability to design rigorous approaches to problem solving across various domains. And she thought that the PhD remains the pinnacle of achievement, which transcends academia into professional realms. Next, I have Dr. Asha Parikh, who is a PhD in biomedical engineering and is now the CEO of her own company, Frontline Medical. And Asha clearly stated that the PhD to her stressed the importance of good communication skills on multiple levels, which really gave her the confidence to make decisions in her business today. And this would be everything from building research roadmaps to multidisciplinary group work with experiences and lessons that she found were very invaluable. Dr. Amanda Warburgs, she's PhD in rehab science, now the manager of research and knowledge translation at the Canadian Frailty Network. She talked about her PhD giving her transferable skills that were very highly valued by non-academic employers. She talked about the non-academic career path having no boundaries and allowing her to curate her professional profile with her skills, experiences, and knowledge that reaches far beyond her dissertation topic area. And finally, I have Dr. Helena Gaspard, who did her PhD in rural studies. She's now a policy advisor with the Natural Resources Canada Major Projects Management Office. And she said it beautifully and simply. The value of her PhD to her is being able to put her degree to good use in the service of all Canadians. And so with that, I end my presentation, and I thank you for your time in listening, and I thank you to the organizers for inviting me to present today. And I'm happy now to open the floor for any questions or discussion. Thank you.
Wow, Yara, this is absolutely amazing. Of course, above and beyond, every time I ask you to do something, you just, yeah, the sky's the limit. Well, thank you on behalf of everybody. And yeah, you're right. PhD, priceless. So I'm inviting everybody in to send questions or ask questions, or even using the chat to maybe define how you think that your PhD will help you to, or definition of a PhD. But thank you again. This is absolutely amazing. Great. So we take questions.
Sure. Julie, do you want me to go ahead and just pick hands that I see up, or do you want to facilitate?
Those might just be hands raised unless those people want to, if they can go ahead and unmute if those are questions. Otherwise, maybe we'll ask people to put them in the chat just because it is quite a big group. So you can put your questions in the chat. Unless Mary Blake or Catherine, you do have questions. You can unmute.
I did have a question.
Oh, great.
But well, I'll try to keep it quick because it's a big group. This might be beyond the scope. Feel free to decline if it's hard. But I think my question applies a little bit more to humanistic disciplines. But I have a few colleagues who who are currently working in non-academic positions that they got shortly after finishing their PhDs. But what I've heard from some people, and again, these are mostly people with PhDs in the humanities, but what I've heard from some people is that their employers were sort of not, they almost seemed to see it seemed like from their interview experience, they said that potential employers seem to see the PhD as more of a liability than an asset. And so while they were, yeah, I mean, obviously these these individuals were able to articulate their relevant skills enough to get a job. They said they had to somewhat downplay the PhD, both in sort of the marketing and resume process, and then also in the interview process. I don't know if you could speak to that, or that might be just far from your experience, but I'd appreciate any insight you might have.
Yeah, I could try to speak to it. At the end of the day, I think it's being able, people get too caught up with the PhD tagline. It comes back down to what actually like I said, I keep talking about the value system. And why I say this is because I recently had the experience where I was able to do some hiring for my company for a very technical role, but it did not require a PhD. Yet I got PhD applicants, which I was quite happy about. Yet within their resume and their cover letter, they only talked about their PhD experience with regards to, again, that sort of their research projects. They worked in the area of MRI, and it had nothing to do with the actual job description that I was doing. So I do think there's a level of the way in which you present your PhD more on a higher level and a sort of a broader level than down to the nitty-gritty. And it's sad to see that people would actually, just look at the PhD title and consider it a negative. Again, I'm not in the social science field, so it might be, a different answer from somebody else. But in my experience, I think it just comes down to showing how you can use what you learn in your PhD beyond the technical, beyond the hard skills, the other soft skills, to adapt to any position that you're put into.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I think you're muted, Julie.
Yeah, so Professor Nolan, do you have a question? You have your hand. Okay, there is one question for you, Yara. Any advice how to spin? Okay, I think there's two questions. Okay, so I think a big concern of employers is that you have been in university for over a decade and have little real world employment experience. You're very specialized and command a higher salary. Any advice how to spin that positively in interviews?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the salary part. You expect a higher salary. I think this is quite key. The salary you're going to get is based on the position the company is offering, right? So I know a lot of people say the PhD brings a higher salary. It brings a higher salary if you're in a highly technical role where a PhD is required, right? So obviously, if you're going in for one of those roles, like a scientific director or something, they know your PhD value already and they will pay you accordingly. So I would say if you're going in for something that's not at the level of a PhD, you're not going to push your PhD sort of scientific stuff and demand a higher salary because you have a PhD, because to them, that part is not of value. So I'll say that with regards to the salary parts. And with regards to the first part with the over specialization, it comes back down to where I need you all to not focus on the over specialization, but focus on the broad sort of skill set that you get. So, Mihaela, what was the first part of the question? Just to repeat it, I was trying to look for it here on the chat.
Yeah, so the question is about, not having real world employment experience.
So you do have real world employment experience, which is what I'm hoping you got out to my presentation. I think, again, we keep so much focus and narrow-minded on our research projects and the technical outputs we have to do. We get real world applications, which is what I was trying to show you in the soft skill set. Like, you're able to get a problem and be able to solve it and be able to work with multiple teams, be able to handle multiple personalities, to be able to get a solution to a problem in a sort of a team approach. So I think we need to start thinking on a broader sense on what we get out of our PhDs, other than just the sort of narrow lens of our project and our project specific outputs. And again, I can't speak for everybody, because everybody's project, everybody's PhD is different. So that's why I said it's up to you all now to go and sit and think about what those are and think a bit deeply. Go onto Google and figure out LinkedIn. Like I said, LinkedIn, Indeed, all of these hiring agencies, they have beautiful resources and articles on what employers expect. Get those articles and sit and see what they suggest to these soft skills that are needed, and start looking at your PhD with broader lens and figure out what you have from your experiences. And I'm talking about experiences, not your projects, from your experiences that you can apply and show that you have those skill sets.
And the last question, I know you have to leave. So the last question, do you think that some employers are looking at PhD as a sign of being too narrow-minded and not hiring you because you're already, kind of like trained and will be difficult to, to retrain you?
So show that you're adaptable, because we are trained and narrowly trained, but you're also adaptable. You're able to, like I said in my presentation, you're able to move around. If we don't know something, we will figure it out. We will get that information, we will research it, whatever. And so at the end of the day, personally for me, when I entered my role, there's a lot of things I didn't know about manufacturing or about the role that I was put into, but I knew how to go find information and teach myself that information. So again, I think you want to show that you're adaptable and you're able to fit into any role and seek the information that you need to seek to improve in that role and contribute to that role as well too. So it's all on how you spin it, all on how you spin your PhD to get the best outcome for you and your employer.
Okay, there's another question. I don't know if you have a second.
No, I have time. I just got to be out by 1 for sure, but okay. I have some time.
So in a cover letter for a non-academic position in social sciences, would you try to articulate your value rather than focus on hard skills or technical skills?
So a cover letter, you have to do both, because a cover letter, when you do your cover letter, you want to gear it specifically to the job description, right? So obviously in the job description, there are certain things they're looking for. So in your cover letter, you want to highlight both soft and hard skills that show that you meet the job description. So at the end of the day, you're not going to focus on one over the other. As you saw from some of these stats I showed in my presentation, they're both equally valuable. And in some positions, some are more valuable than others. And so you need to look at the job description for the job you're applying for, figure out what it is they're looking for, and then use your cover letter to balance both soft and hard, or leverage on one versus the other, depending on what the position is.
Okay, well, thank you very much on behalf of all of us. This was very inspirational, and I think that it was so clear, and I like that approach of actually dissecting, you know, all the skills and proving that actually a PhD has more value than anything, and it's not years of, you know, of a lot of work, and if you know how to translate it, definitely it shows that you are unique, that you are competitive, and then that overqualification is actually something that an employer will benefit. And look at you, you just in a couple of years, soon you're going to run the show. So
I got to teach myself a lot before that, but yeah. So yeah, no, thank you. And to anything, my email is there, my LinkedIn is there. So obviously, if you want, you know, this is a bigger discussion now. We could probably spend a whole afternoon chatting with PhDs and postdocs and graduates about it. And I would love to do that one day. So if you do want to email me to just set up a time to chat, a Zoom chat with coffee, I am happy to do that too. I'm by no means an expert. It's just on my experience, but I can also help, you know, you all try to navigate that as well too.
Well, we'll bring you back maybe to do like a LinkedIn profile. I know that you have an amazing LinkedIn page, so maybe we could still learn from you. So I would love to invite you again. Thank you, Yara.